Remember when the British government ruled that it was going to deport migrants to Rwanda, and everyone kicked off about it and says, "Oh, we'll go to the courts. Surely this can't be legal." Turns out it is. it's, it's legal. Yeah, you can get sent to Rwanda now if you come into the country illegally. The government's plan to deport migrants to Rwanda is lawful, the High Court has ruled. The court ruled on Monday that the scheme did not breach the UN's Refugee Convention or human rights laws. After all, what's wrong with Rwanda? They said Uganda. But the cases of 8 asylum seekers had not been properly considered and would need to be reconsidered, the judges said. Home Secretary Suella Braverman said she is committed to making the Rwanda policy work, and best of luck to her. A hearing will take place in January to deal with any appeal rejections. Miss Braverman says, "We have always maintained that this policy is lawful, and today the court has upheld this. I am committed to making this partnership work, and my focus remains on moving ahead with the policy as soon as possible, and we stand ready to defend against any further legal challenge." Criticising the government's decision to progress with the plans, Labour's Shadow Home Secretary Yvette Cooper called the policy unworkable, extortionate and deeply damaging. I mean, do you know what's even more extortionate if you let them in? Ooh, that gets expensive, doesn't it? Responding to a statement by Miss Braverman in the Commons, she said instead of sorting out problems with the asylum system, the Conservatives have put forward a plan which risks making trafficking worse. But Miss Braverman accused Labour of seeking to go behind a decision set out by our independent judiciary to suggest this is an illegitimate scheme. Former Home Secretary Priti Patel announced the government plan to deport some people to Rwanda back in April. The first deportation flight which was due to take off on 14th June, was grounded following a series of objections from lawyers for asylum seekers, along with the Public and Commercial Services Union (PCS) and charities Care for Calais and Detention Action. Rishi Sunak said he welcomed the High Court ruling, calling it a common sense position that was supported by the vast majority of the British public. Speaking to broadcasters during a visit to Riga, Latvia, the Prime Minister says, "We've always maintained that our Rwanda policy is lawful, and I'm pleased that was confirmed today." Alison Thewlis, the SNP's Home Affairs spokesperson at Westminster, called the Rwanda plan deeply immoral. What's wrong with Rwanda? I thought these migrants were escaping horrible, atrocious, horrible things. Rwanda's a lovely place now. Not in the 90s, not in the 80s, 90s. You know, it was quite bad. Couple of little genocides here and there, but you know, no country's perfect. No country's perfect. They've done very well for themselves since then. They've become quite the economic powerhouse of Africa. Just don't ask where the money's coming from. Right? I'm just saying, there's absolutely nothing wrong with Rwanda. These refugees were fleeing horrible conditions. Now they've been sent to Rwanda, and it's a lovely place. What's wrong? We've sent them somewhere lovely. I don't understand the issue. She told the Commons, "Those fleeing war, famine and oppression deserve and need our full support." Yes, they do, which is why we're putting them on flights to Rwanda, where there is no war, famine or oppression. Not much. Now, Rwanda's active. I'm making jokes. Rwanda's done very well, by the way. Responding to Miss Thewlis, Home Office Minister Robert Jenrick said the plans were designed to simplify a too complicated and too bureaucratic immigration system. He said the Scottish Government are refusing to take any of the asylum seekers who are arriving in the UK on small boats. That is not right. The Scottish Government are refusing asylum seekers. Fascinating. There is a widening gulf between the actions of the Scottish Government and their rhetoric. The Scottish Government's desperate for asylum seekers, man. I mean, if you ever walk it through any of the suburbs in Glasgow, like I say suburbs, it's like the inner, do you know where all the students live? You know, the inner city, like, sort of housing, but it's like full areas of students. You'll see refugees are welcome here. Ha ha ha. Well, not here, because, you know, I rent. I would take you if I could, but it's a rental. Yeah, those ones. Other people should do it. It should be other people's tax money that houses. Yeah, fuck off, you little fucking idiot. This is a major victory for the government because the High Court has found that not only does the law allow ministers to relocate some asylum seekers to another country for their claims to be dealt with there, but they had also acted rationally in the way that they set up the partnership with Rwanda. But will there be a day when flights depart? As the Home Secretary says she dreams, appeals are almost inevitable, and it could be months before they are dealt with. if. Then there could be a further challenge to the Supreme Court if there's a major dispute about what a particular point of law means. And then individual migrants earmarked for a flight could try to petition the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg. That's assuming that the judgment's ruling that more care needs to be taken on each case and doesn't add even more delays. So basically, these guys can go even further than I could go when it came to my appeals. And they're not even from here. So the government is not putting a timescale on the flight for good reason. They're currently winning on the principle of law, but can they really put it into action before the next general election? She said, Claire Mosley, founder of refugee charity Care for Cali, called the decision on Monday disappointing. She said, people who have suffered the horrors of war, torture and human rights abuses should not be faced with the immense trauma of deportation to a future where we cannot guarantee their safety. Well, but I mean, we wouldn't send them there if it wasn't safe. They've fled horror, war and torture and human rights abuses, so we're sending them to a safe get the hiccups now. A safe African country. What's wrong with Rwanda? Claire Mosley's racist. What, is it because it's a black country? Is that why? Is that why? There's nothing wrong with Rwanda. They can sit there and they can live until we've dealt with their case. What's wrong with Rwanda? What's wrong? It's going to be the motto of this video. What's wrong with Rwanda? Josie Naughton, chief executive of migrant charity Choose Love, choose somewhere else to live, said the ruling flies in the face of international commitments and accountability, adding that campaigners will continue to fight for the human right to seek asylum. The human right to seek asylum. That's interesting. That's not, I should be allowed to live where you live. A human right. You don't have a right to someone else's property or time or labour. You don't have a right to that. You don't have a right to live wherever you want. I mean, if the place gives you permission, then that's fine. Consent has been granted. However, you're coming over in little boats across the channel, aren't you? That's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. You're not going through the proper fucking channel. So you can sit in Rwanda until the shit gets sorted out. The Labour Party also branded the government's Rwanda plan unworkable and unethical. What's unethical is coming over in boats. James Wilson, Deputy Director of Detention Action, says, we are disappointed that the High Court has found the removal of refugees to an autocratic state which tortures and kills people is lawful. However, we will fight on. The Rwanda policy is brutal and harmful, and we will now consider an appeal against today's judgment. However, Ms Patel called for ministers to press ahead with the policy as she welcomed the judgment. She said, no single policy will stop the channel crossings, but this important policy will save lives, help break the business model of the criminal gangs, and prevent asylum abuse. Former Prime Minister Boris Johnson said on Twitter, it is welcome news that the High Court has ruled that the Rwanda policy is lawful. It is one of the only humane ways of dealing with the vile people trafficking gangs who are exploiting so many people. Rwandan government spokeswoman Yolande Makolo added, we welcome this decision and stand ready to offer asylum seekers and migrants safety and the opportunity to build a new life in Rwanda. There you are. We've found a safe place for them to go. But you want them here specifically. Oh, they're fleeing war, famine and death. Funny, I coughed after I said death. They're fleeing war, famine and death. And that's fine, and we can put them somewhere where there's none of that. Problem solved. But that's not good enough. You want them here. You want them here specifically. Why is that, I wonder? This is a positive step on our quest to contribute innovative long-term solutions to the global migration crisis. Rishi Sunak's official spokesman said the Prime Minister welcomed the High Court's ruling. He did not give a time frame for flights taking off, but added, we want to go as quickly as possible. And that's the end of the story there. Look, I'm just saying, if you come here legally and you go through the proper channels and the government decides to grant you access, then fine, whatever. You went through the proper channels at least. They were able to do background checks and make sure you weren't a terrorist or make sure that you weren't an organised criminal coming into the country to conduct business and stuff like that. Not a problem whatsoever. Some checks have been done to ensure the safety of the British people. And also to ensure a bunch of people aren't in here, using our free... Well, they're not free, using our social services when they haven't contributed into the system at all. Because everyone's like, oh, why is the NHS collapsing? because the NHS works on people who have been born here contributing to it with their taxes. When you introduce tens of thousands, I mean, even just 10,000 people fucks that system up a lot. However, it's been a hell of a lot more than 10,000. It's been hundreds of thousands. Hundreds of thousands have came here illegally. And it's fucking everything up. But, again, who cares? You know, it's just, it's not the fact that we're pointing out, you know, factual things and all that. We just don't like immigrants.